In this video, we're going to review sentence types by specifically talking about where commas belong in each type of sentence. And in case you need a review before we get started, you may want to watch or rewatch my sentence types review video. In that video, I talk about the difference between a phrase and a dependent clause, dependent versus independent clauses, including what awoobis words are, or, in other words, subordinating conjunctions. And I give detailed descriptions of what those four sentence types are. In this video, we're going to move on. I'm going to assume that you already know all this information. In addition, I want to clarify that in this video, I'm not going to review every single comma rule ever. For example, I'm not going to be able to get to interjections, names, dates and places, coordinate adjectives, and some of the littler comma rules. Instead, I'm going to focus just on where commas go between phrases and clauses. So, our first and easiest sentence type is simple, and a simple sentence is just one independent clause. Commas can go with phrases, and it will still be a simple sentence. For example, if I put in an introductory phrase, then I would want to pause or take a breath or put a comma after it before stating the actual main independent clause. So I might read, after the game, the team went to Pizza Hut. Or, after the game, comma, the team went to Pizza Hut. So this example has an awoobis word in it. It has the subordinating conjunction after. But this is still just a phrase. It's still just the game, a subject that doesn't have a predicate. So an introductory phrase that clarifies when they went to Pizza Hut, which is fine. In my second example, in New York City, comma, a plane crashed into the World Trade Center. Again, introductory phrase that just clarifies the information in this simple sentence. I can also put an interrupting appositive phrase or an interrupting modifier in the middle of a sentence that is simple. Now, we're going to talk more later about non-restrictive and restrictive, or non-essential and essential elements. That's a whole different topic that would take a moment to explain, but for now, just trust me that commas surround an interrupting phrase. For example, the dancer, comma, a Harvard graduate, comma, started her own ballet studio. So this phrase is just describing the dancer and who she is before continuing the rest of the sentence. And overall, this sentence is still a simple one. And finally, I can put a phrase at the end of a sentence and put a comma here to separate it. We couldn't believe that the boss chose him, comma, a total slacker. So here I'm putting a pause or a breath before clarifying who this guy is. Compound sentences are a little different. Here, commas go with a fanboys conjunction to join two clauses. Because remember, a compound sentence is just two independent clauses correctly joined together in some way. And fanboy stands for and nor, but, or, yet, so. Check out these examples. The ref was corrupt, and he only called fouls on one team. I have both a comma and a fanboys joining two complete sentences, so this is fine. We were tired, comma, but we decided to go see the movie anyway. Again, I've got both a comma and a fanboys word joining two complete independent clauses. So these are good examples. But you can easily create a run-on if you're not careful with commas in compound sentences. In fact, these messed up compounds are where most run-ons come from. For example, if you only put a comma between those two sentences, it's a specific type of run-on called a comma splice. It would be incorrect to say, our friends couldn't go, comma, we had to cancel. You cannot just put a comma alone between two complete sentences. That's a major Uber run-on called a comma splice. You have to have that fanboys word with it, or it's no good. If you do the reverse, it's a run-on as well. If you don't put a comma with that needed fanboys word, it's a kind of run-on called a fused sentence. So if you put nothing between two sentences, that's bad. You can't just say, the puppy was hungry, it didn't eat its dinner. You can't not put anything there between an idea ending and a new one starting. It would also be bad if I put a fanboys word without a comma. The puppy was hungry, yet it didn't eat its dinner. You have to put both. And our next sentence type is a complex sentence. This is when you have one independent and one dependent, and the order doesn't really matter which one comes first. For example, if you do an introductory dependent clause first and then the independent one, you need to put a comma in between. Because she struggled on the test, comma, the teacher gave her more practice. Here's my introductory dependent one. Here's my actual complete sentence, my independent clause that actually prevents it from being a fragment. Same thing with the second example. Since you asked nicely, comma, I will allow you to go to your friend's house. However, believe it or not, this may sound very strange to you, but if the independent clause happens first, before the dependent one, that comma is optional now. So I took the same two sentences and moved the dependent clause to the end, and now we don't need commas anymore. I'm not honestly sure why that rule exists, I just know that that's real. And kind of like the appositive phrases we talked about a few slides ago, if you put in a positive dependent clause that interrupts the middle of a sentence, then you put commas around it, just like we did on the interrupter right here with simple sentences and phrases. So my mom, comma, who really loves Star Wars, comma, can't wait for the new movies. Here's a complex sentence with that dependent clause interrupting the middle of the independent one. That's okay. And I know it's okay, in part because these two commas are here. I will allow you, since you asked nicely, to go to your friend's house. Here's that same sentence from before. And instead of putting it at the beginning or the end, I interrupted the sentence with a dependent clause. And that's okay too. And our fourth sentence type is a compound complex sentence. And if you take those same rules from the previous two slides and apply them here, then you're good. Commas go between introductory and the main independent clauses, and they go with fanboys words to connect two of them. For example, although the show was over, comma, introductory clause, she remained in her seat, comma, and, new sentence, I checked to see if she was crying. My book bag was stolen, comma, so I reported it to my teacher, comma, even though she probably couldn't help much. Independent, independent, dependent. So these are the longest, usually, and most complicated type of sentence, but it's still not that hard. Take a time out to look at these practice sentences and see if you can decide where the commas go inside them. Pause the video if you need to, so you can make your decisions before I move on. Are you ready? Here are the answers. If you ask me one more time, comma, then I will definitely say no. I had an awubis if, dependent clause, comma. In 1987, phrase, an awesome teacher was born. That would be me. Just kidding, but not really. The quarterback, comma, a Heisman Trophy winner, comma, threw a winning touchdown. Here's a simple sentence with that interrupting phrase. The pizza was delicious, comma, so we ordered a second one. Some really hungry people there. I've got a comma and a fanboys connecting two sentences in a compound one. I want a second piece of cake since Maud won't eat hers. Here I don't need a comma because the dependent clause is happening second. As the storm rolled into town, comma, we heard the wind get louder, comma, and then we saw the dark clouds on the horizon. So here's a compound complex sentence with a comma after the dependent and one that goes with the fan voice to join the two independents. And finally, number 7. That commercial, comma, which played for weeks, comma, was absolutely hilarious. Here is a complex sentence with a dependent clause interrupting the middle that is surrounded on both sides by commas. Thank you for listening. There are more videos to watch if you need help understanding this one, and if you want to move on and understand more fully what those appositives are and what modifiers are. So thanks for watching.